dear children, welcome to Nagesh Karasgi Orchid School channel. I am Anita teacher. I am going to teach you social science of grade 7. Today I am going to teach you history lesson number 6. So before that I want to ask you some questions like last year in 6th standard which type of history we have studied? We learnt ancient history in 6th standard, and for 8th standard we are going to learn modern history. Now we are learning the medieval history, that is in 7th standard we are learning medieval history. So today our chapter name is towns, traders and craftsmen. So now I want to tell you that, dear children, during medieval period some new towns developed in different parts of India. These towns have different priorities, some administrative, some were administrative centers, some were religious centers, some were port towns or commercial centers. In fact, many towns combined several functions. They were administrative centers, temple towns as well as centers of commercial activities and craft production also. So the title itself, first we must understand the title, that is towns, traders and craftsmen. Now towns you know very well. Now just now I have explained that in medieval period many towns developed in different parts of India. So now it comes traders. Traders are nothing but like it is a selling buying process the traders are doing, a trading system. And craftsmen, it is related to traders, like without the craftsmen the trading will be not done, and without the towns the traders cannot do their activities. So these are the interrelated towns, traders and craftsmen. By the title you can understand the lesson. So now we will proceed. Now I want to read the points. During medieval period new towns developed in different parts of India. These towns have different priorities, some were administrative centers, some were religious centers, port towns or commercial centers. Many towns combined several functions. They were administrative centers, temple towns as well as centers of commercial activities and craft production. Now I made some mind map so that you can understand the lesson very easily and properly. These are different types of towns. First is temple town. What is mean by temple town? Temple town where many famous temples are situated. Administrative center. Administrative center means from that town there the administration process is done. Then commercial center, which is the process commercial where the business act is taken place. And port town, that is where the import export things are done, like it is near the sea. So through sea route the import export process is done. Now we will study in detail what are administrative centers, but before that you know we have read about the Chola dynasty in chapters 2. In our chapter 2 we have learnt about Chola dynasty which is situated in Tamil Nadu. So there the capital of Cholas is Tanjavur. Tanjavur, the capital of Cholas, it is an administrative center. Places with mandapas, barracks for army, markets, water supply, salia weavers, which produce those who produce cloth, and sculptors. Now palaces with mandapas, here kings held courts, they organize the meetings there and kings issued orders to the subordinates. Barracks for army, barracks are nothing but like they are the houses for soldiers. Now markets, in markets items were sold like grains, spices, gold, jewelry. Now water supply, water is supplied to various parts. Now salaya weavers produce cloth for flags for temple festivals, king and nobles. That the cloth which was produced, it was used to prepare flags for temples, and the fine cotton was used for kings and nobles for their clothes, and coarse cotton that was used for masses, means other public. Now, sculptors at Swami Malai make bronze. They make bronze idols, tall ornamental bell metal lamps. Bell metal lamps, this metal when it is hit, bell like sound is produced. So, it is called bell metal. Now, Tanjore is also a temple town. Rajarajeshwara temple built by Rajaraja Chola. The architect who is Kanjaramallan Rajaraja Perantachannan. Temples were the centers of economic and social activities. They were the centers for economic as well as social activities. Many social activities were formed and the money was collected there. It represented a very important pattern of urbanization. Urbanization is that small villages are turned into cities, towns. So, that is, it is a pattern of urbanization. It was also an important pilgrimage center. So, many devotees visit this temple. It is a pilgrimage center. Temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Now, here some authorities are appointed to look after the temple. Those authorities, they used whatever the donations they used to get, they use that wealth to finance trade and banking also. Gradually, number of priests, workers, traders, etc. settled near the temple, making temple town. Now, gradually when the donations, they were getting more and more donations and many activities were performed near the temples. Gradually these priests, workers, traders, etc. they settled near the temple and it became temple town. Now, rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. Now, here the rulers, they build many temples. In last lesson we have seen rulers and buildings. So, there were architectural constructions. Now, here they have built the temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities, various gods. Reasons for the growth of temple town. What is the reason for the growth of temple town? Rich merchants, priests, workers, artisans, etc. settled near the temple, as I told before. These areas later developed into a township. Now, huge funds in the form of land grants and donations. So, these temple authorities, they were getting the land grants also as well as donations also, which were donated by rulers as well as pilgrims also. Those who come to visit the worship God, the devotees come there. So, there the donations are given. Now, pilgrimage centers that developed into townships. Now, here some of the pilgrimage centers which developed into townships we are going to read. Vrindavan, which is in Uttar Pradesh, Vilaswamin, Madhya Pradesh, Somnath, Gujarat, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, Kanchipuram, Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu, and Ajmer, which is in Rajasthan, was the capital of Chauhan kings in 12th century and later became the Suba headquarters under the Mughals. It is the excellent example of religious coexistence. Here in Ajmer, there is no religion bonding, everyone visits here. So, it became the attraction, excellent example of religion coexistence. And some more points about Ajmer. Was the capital of Chawan king, same point, 12th century, and later became the Suba headquarters under the Mughals. It is the excellent example of religious coexistence. Near Ajmer, there is a lake Pushkar, which has attracted pilgrims from ancient times. So, there is a lake which attracts the pilgrims. Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, the celebrated Sufi saint who settled in Ajmer, attracted devotees from all creeds, from all castes and creeds. Now, what all small towns had? Now, what all small towns they had? They have Mandapika or Mandi. Mandi is market. Nearby villages brought their products for selling in the market. Here, now these towns they became marketplaces, as small villages they bring their products like vegetables, grains or whatever things, they come to this market and sell it. Fortified palaces. Samanta or zamindars built fortified palaces and levied taxes on traders. They built very fortified palaces are having tall walls, very attractive palaces, and they levied taxes on traders. Now, traders some live in town and some travelled from town to town. Now, some traders they were staying there and doing their trading, and some were travelling from town to town. Now, streets, markets. Now, streets are having markets, market street called hut, which were lined with shops, that is called hut, where the shops were placed in line. Streets for artisans, potters, oil pressers and sugar makers, etc. Now, these streets were for artisans, potters, oil pressers and sugar makers. The language is very simple, you can understand very properly. Now, various trading communities emerged. After this, now various trading communities have come, emerged. Banjaras and horse traders, Manikramam and Nandesi, Chetiyars, Marwari, Oswal and Gujarati traders, Arab, Persian, Chinese, Jewish, Christian traders and even European traders. Now, we will read about crafts. Craftspersons of Bidar, famous for inlay work in copper and silver. So, these craftspersons of Bidar, they were very famous for their work, preparing the craft things in copper and silver, and that those articles were named as Bidri also. The Panchalas or Vishwakarma community, here in this category, goldsmiths, bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and carpenters are included, where goldsmiths also work here, bronzesmiths they prepare the articles of bronze, blacksmiths they prepare the things of iron, masons you know very well, and carpenters. Salyar or Kaikolars making donations to the temple. Now, we will go to the next topic, that is we will have a closer look on some of the cities like Hampi, Masulipattnam and Surat. A gateway to the west is Surat, fishing in troubled water Masulipattnam, new towns and traders, that is European countries. So, in this way we are going to read the lesson now in a short way. Through mind map I have explained the lesson. Now, open your history textbook, page number 75. We will read the lesson now. I hope you have understood the summary of the lesson through mind map. At the end of this lesson also, once again we will have a look on our mind map. Okay. Now sixth lesson number 6, towns, traders and craftspersons. What would a traveler visiting a medieval town expect to find? This would depend on what kind of a town it was. So, whenever a traveler is visiting a medieval town, what he will expect? He will expect what kind of town it is, whether it is temple town, administrative center, a commercial town or a port town, to name just some possibilities. In fact, many towns combine several functions also. In many of the towns, all these functions are combined, like it is a administrative center, it is a temple town, it is a commercial activity center as well as craft production also. Now here the map is given. As I told, we are going to focus main. The boxes are given here: Surat, Masulipattnam and Hampi. Surat is situated where it is located in Gujarat, Hampi in Karnataka and Masulipattnam in Andhra Pradesh. So in detail we are going to learn about these cities. Now some are the important centers of trade and artisanal production in central and south India. So you can see the map properly. Now the names which I read all are located here. Here is Tanjavur, okay, Kanchipuram, Tirupati, Madras, Mahabalipuram, Bijapur, Golconda, Bidar, Bombay, Somnath, Ahmedabad, Pushkar Lake is here, Ajmer is here, Vrindavan is here, okay, Murshidabad, Calcutta. So all these places you can see in the map. Now next part, administrative centers. You read about the Chola dynasty in chapter 2. Let's travel in our imagination to Tanjavur. Already I have told you, we are going to read about Tanjavur, the capital of the Cholas, as it was 1,000 years ago. The perennial river Kaveri flows near this beautiful town. What is meant by perennial? Means always it is flowing, continuous flow. It does not stop, that is perennial river. One hears the bells of the Rajarajeshwara temple built by King Rajaraja Chola. So one hears the bells of which temple? Rajarajeshwara temple. Who built that? King Rajaraja Chola. The town's people are all praised for its architect, Kanjaramallan Rajaraja Peruntachan, who was proudly carved his name on the temple wall. The name is bit difficult, but you can pronounce it Kanjaramallan Rajaraja Peruntachan. It is Peruntachan, who was proudly carved his name on the temple. So he is the architecture. So very proudly he carved his name on the temple wall. Inside is a massive Shivling. So what is there inside? There is a Shivling. Beside the temple, there are palaces with mandapas or pavilions. So you know mandapas, pavilions in stadiums also. We have pavilions, cricket match wherever is played. Kings hold court in these mandapas. What they do? The kings used to hold the meetings in these mandapas, issuing orders to their subordinates. There are also barracks for the army. Barracks means again the house for soldiers. The town is bustling with markets selling grain, spices, cloth and jewelry. So, here the town is bustling, it is always crowded, busy with markets. What they are selling? Grains, spices, cloth and jewelry. Water supply for the town comes from wells and tanks. So, from where the water is supplied? It is supplied from wells and tanks. The Salaya weavers of Tanjore and the nearby town of Urayur are busy producing cloth for flags to be used in the temple festival. So, the Salaya weavers of Tanjore and nearby town Urayur, they were busy in producing cloth. For what they were producing cloth? For flags which were used for temple festivals. You know this, what type of flags are used whenever there are festivals or near the temples, they use these flags. And fine cottons, the cotton which is very fine for the kings and nobility, those were that type of cloth which is very fine, it is used for the kings and nobility. And the coarse cotton, little bit rough cotton, it is used for the masses. Masses means some other public. Some distance away, Swamimalai, the stapatis for sculptors are making exquisite, means that is very beautiful bronze idols and tall ornamental bell metal lamps. So, the sculptors they were making the bronze idols and tall ornamental metal lamps. Again I told you, the metal, when it is hit, bell like sound is produced. So, this type of metal is called bell metal. Now, temple towns and pilgrimage centers. Tanjore is also an example of temple town. It is also an administrative center as well as now it is the example of temple town. Temple towns represent a very important pattern of urbanization. Again I told urbanizations which is developed into cities. The process by which cities develop. Temples were often central to the economy and society. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. They also endowed temples with grants. Endowed means the property which they have, they gave. So, they endowed temples with grants of land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and priests and celebrate festivals. So, the money which was they were granting the lands as well as money for what they were using to feed the pilgrims, the devotees which were coming, and priests, and even for celebrating festivals they need money. So, they were using that money for these activities. Pilgrims who flocked to the temples also made donations. The pilgrims, those who were visiting, they were also giving donations. Now, you can see, we will go to the bell metal. You can understand what is bell metal exactly. Bronze, bell metal and the lost wax technique. What is this technique? Let us see. Bronze is an alloy containing copper and tin. Already in science you have learned what is an alloy. Mixture of two metals is called alloy. So, bronze, it is a mixture of two metals. When it is combined, an alloy is formed. Bronze is an alloy which contains copper as well as tin. Bell metal contains a greater proportion of tin than other kinds of bronze. Now, here copper and tin is mixed, then bronze is produced. So, here copper quantity, the bell metal contains greater proportion of tin than copper. This produces a bell like sound. That is the reason it produces bell like sound. Chola bronze statue. See, if you see in chapter 2, you can go to chapter 2 and see, were made using the lost wax technique. What is this lost wax technique? Let us see. First, an image was made of wax. What is wax? You know very well. Candle. What is candle? Is prepared of wax, which can be melted. So, first the image was made of wax. This was covered with clay and allowed to dry. First the image was made with wax and it was covered with clay and it was allowed to dry. Next it was heated. And a tiny hole was made in the clay cover. At the bottom a small hole was made. When you heat the clay, the wax inside the clay get melted. The molten wax was drained out through this hole. So, after melting, the wax was drained out. Then molten metal was poured into the clay and molded through the hole. Now, after when the wax is removed from that hole, then the metal was poured, molten, that is melted metal was poured in that clay. Once the metal cooled and solidified, the clay cover was carefully removed and the image was cleaned and polished. So, once when the melted metal was poured, when it gets solidified, when it becomes thick, the clay cover was removed very carefully. Slowly it was removed and the image, whatever the image, metal image was we get, that was cleaned and polished. What do you think were the advantages of using this technique? This is a question for you children. What advantage is there of using this technique? Try to find out the answer. Now we will go to next part. You understood about this lost about the lost wax technique. Now we will go to next part, that is, see, you can see the bronze statue of Krishna, the serpent demon, here is the serpent. So, here see, this is the snake, yeah. Temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Again I am telling the same thing, I am repeating, the temple authorities who were appointed as the authorities, they were using the wealth, whatever they used to get as donations, they used this wealth to finance trade and banking. Gradually a large number of priests, workers, artisans, traders, etc. settled near the temple to cater to its needs and those of the pilgrims. Even now the workers, the priests are required in temples, okay, artisans, they were preparing various articles, workers and even traders. Slowly they started to settle near the temple to cater to the needs, those who are coming, the people who are visiting the temples, to cater, to look after their needs, these people, they have settled near the temples, thus grew temple towns and it became the temple town. Towns emerged around temples such as those of Billa Swamin, that is Bilsa or Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh and Somnath in Gujarat. Other important temple towns included Kanchipuram and Madurai in Tamil Nadu and Tirupati in Andhra Pradesh. Now, these are the temples, famous temples which are located. So, in this way we have completed this topic. Till here we have completed in this session. So, we will continue the remaining lesson in the next session. So, till then you read the lesson children, I want to instruct you, read the lesson underline the difficult words, try to pronounce the words. So, till then you take care. Bye. See you in the next session. Thank you.